Welcome into This Week in Missouri Politics, TWMP Daily. We are joined by former Senator Holly Rader with some big news. Thank you so much for making the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. This is exciting.
Always nice to have a Southeast Missourian here in the studio. Very grateful. We have Flat Doug all the time, so we have St. Louis covered. We really need we need Southeast Missourians to be represented.
You need a Flat Holly in here.
We do need a Flat Holly. We're in the talks of expanding the studio out. And I'm gonna need some more flat people. And flat, that'd be great because then we could have a fake debate between you and Doug, back and forth.
One of my best debates was with Doug. One of my first good ones was in committee.
And one of his first good ones.
Yeah. And we're good friends. He's a great guy.
He is a great guy. Isn't that's to me a special thing? And I honestly think it's more in the Senate than the House. In the House,
I agree.
If you're, can you imagine being a Democrat in the House?
Right.
Every rule, every day is set up for you to lose.
Yeah.
And it would be frustrating, and I get mad. I don't think I could. I think it'd be hard to have relationships and to keep them good if you were in the House.
Yes, I think that where you find the fulfilling work as a Democrat in the House is your constituent services.
Yeah. Right.
That's your sweet spot. That's you can take really good care of your constituents and then feel like you've done the job.
So we don't want to bury the lead, as I say. We have a big announcement. You're taking over Axe Advocacy, part of the Axiom family of companies, correct?
Right. So I'm the Missouri person, principal for Axe Advocacy. It's a little hard to get out, and my slow talking. And so I'm super excited about that. I'll be in Missouri, a little bit in D.C., and then
you got a few friends out there.
Yeah, I got a few friends and my baby out there. So that's exciting. And then also, they are in multiple states, and so lending a hand in some other states will also be super cool.
That's got to be like a cool challenge. I mean, you've done almost everything you do in Missouri, right? There's no part of Missouri politics you haven't seen and been in the middle of. It's got to be kind of fun to take that challenge to Washington and maybe go to some new states and get some new experiences.
Right.
To me, that'd be kind of neat.
Because for me, this is full circle.
Yes.
I did government affairs before ever even thinking about running for office, and in the cable television industry. Then I worked for the Cable Association, which was my first I was on the board of the Cable Association when my first look at Jefferson City, and then became their in-house government affairs person, and all before running for office. And so the super cool thing is that we've had Aaron Baker wears many hats. But I don't even know all the jobs that Aaron does, but building relationships is something that he does naturally, and so I start with already a client list that Freddie Barnes and Aaron Baker have already managed, and so it's exciting for me to be able to come into a great company.
I don't know anybody that gets more done in a day than Aaron Baker.
I don't either.
In a field where, and I love most of them, you do get a lot of talk, and sometimes the follow through is a little. Aaron Baker, if he says something's gonna be there at 5, it's there at 4:30.
Yeah.
I have never dealt with Aaron Baker when he said, "I'm gonna get this to you," whatever it is, and it's not there early.
No,
I have. In a field where you're so busy all the time, and especially in an election time, you have everything to get done by this one deadline. I've never met a person who could run something and get more things done. I
know.
A lot of people in politics say they're going to get you something. I'm like, okay, I got to remind you and all this. With Baker, if it's going to be there by the 10th, it's there on the 9th.
No, he's amazing, and he ran my Senate campaign.
Oh, you heard a funny story about one of my favorite Aaron Baker stories. That night we were calling these races, right?
Yeah.
And
I know y'all called it against me, didn't you?
No, we didn't.
Oh.
And the only reason I'll tell you why we didn't. It was looking that way, right?
Yeah. Oh, it was close.
And I saw this poll, and I'd called him. I was like, "Now I know Cape people. I think your opponent, some situations, your work. I think she's going to do well in Cape, but there's no way to do that well in Cape." And it came out that it was really neck and neck. And I had been, because from Poplar Bluff to drive to St. Louis, you go through Fredericktown.
Yeah.
And I like stopping Fredericktown.
Yeah.
I like Shearer's Grocery at the time, and I like
Beautiful
Fredericktown.
community.
And I'd seen these signs, and I'm like, okay, because he had texted me and said, yeah, it's getting tight, and he's like, don't call it just yet. And he said, Madison County, we've actually done a lot of work there. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I'd been through there. I'd seen the signs. I'd not seen any Kathy signs, and maybe I missed them. I didn't see anything from her in Madison County. Yeah. And then the Madison County folks brought you through at the very end by 100 votes?
Yes. Tight.
What goes through your mind
margin
on election night when you've worked so hard? Because, I mean, you worked it. You didn't leave anything undone.
No, I don't.
But you got all these people that supported you, and you got your team and everybody. What's going through your mind on election night when the vote is literally like 10 votes? Every time they refresh something, you get a little lead or you go back, or what's that like?
For me, it's because I'm always win or lose, it's what God intended, and I'm cool with it. Like, I'm super cool with it.
Really?
Yeah. No, for me,
I wish I could be that way.
I'm just super cool with it. It's like I want. God surprises me every day, and I love it, and I want that. But to feel like I've disappointed everyone that's worked so hard.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just me working.
Yeah.
It was a team. It was all of these volunteers, and it's like, I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want them to feel like they lost. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with losing. I don't want.
You really were? I wouldn't have been. I'd have been pissed. Mm-hmm. How do you get there in life? How do you get to a place where you can legitimately say, I'm going to be good with whatever happens? I've just never been able to get there. How do you get there?
God has never let me down. I mean, you know my backstory.
Yeah.
Like,
I've read the book. It's in my office.
Yeah.
I got a signed copy of it, actually.
In anything that he has done for me, even if it's not what I've expected, has turned out to be better his way. And so I've had a lot of hiccups in the road, but they always turn out better. And so it's like...
Okay, I'm going to tell a story on you, folks. And I'm going to try to get choked up for you. We're going to thank our sponsors, United Electric, one of the best co-ops in the Great Northwest, where you have a lot of friends from.
Yes.
One of the best Great Northwest days was last night. It was really cool. Jay got to go, took pictures. Also, the Courtyard by Marriott. If you're going to put folks up in Jeff City, don't skimp. Do it right. Courtyard by Marriott. I've watched you, and to me, in a world where every time somebody does anything, they put a picture on the internet, right? And it's almost it becomes like, did you do something because it was good, or did you do something so you could put it on the internet? I know several women who, throughout politics, throughout lobbying, whatever campaigns, you have ups and downs. I've watched you reach out to several women when they were having a bad day. And to me, you don't need your friends when you're winning and things are good. You need your friends when you have a bad day. And I have such a high regard for you because on days when I didn't even know you were very close to some of these people, I've heard them tell stories of getting a call or a text from you and how much that meant to them. And that is, to me, you talk about legacies. That's a great legacy, in my opinion, to have. That you were there for people, not when everything's going great. Like Mike Eo doesn't need any friends right now. He's got tons of. He's got more friends than he can deal with. But when you're having that bad day, when you had that loss, the people that reach out to you, then to me that is an amazing legacy of actually caring about people in a business, frankly, that's not known for that.
I love that. Thank you. To me, it's especially women. I feel like we get. Those of us that are in the public eye, you get torn down for things that don't matter.
And my opinion, my observation is, a lot of that tearing down is from other women.
Yeah.
Probably more ruthlessly than men a lot of times.
No, absolutely. And it's hard, especially for younger women, Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm 55, so I've been there, I've seen that, and have
that perspective has to help.
It's right. And so when I see these young girls who are like I was in my late 20s, early 30s, and just working and keeping my head down and trying my best to keep all the trains on the tracks, and then you see them get, knocked down a notch or two for this or for that on things that aren't even important. Sometimes you just have to remind them that nobody even cares about that. That doesn't even matter,
It is so true. I have a friend who had a rough go, and I'm like, today they're talking about you. Tomorrow, well, I'll tell you, this state rep that I actually like,
so
this
true.
Bryant Wolflin, right from our neck of
Yeah,
the woods.
yeah.
He made the motion to nominate Sparks, which whatever. I think the body made their decision pretty
Yeah.
resounding on that. But I was like, people can have their opinions on what you did, but you're going to be with this group of people for 8 years.
Right.
All the time for 5 months a year, and sporadically, this group of people. They're not going to define you by what you did in your first day. Mm-hmm. Anybody that's been around long as goes, you're in a tough spot. They're going to define you by you keep your word. Do what you're going to do. Do you treat people with respect? Are you the kind of person? Are you a positive person people want to be around? That's what your reputation is going to be built of, not day one.
That's good. That's good advice that you gave him, because it's a family over there, and it's just like your brothers and sisters. You don't get along with them all the time. You don't appreciate everything they do, but there's much more to people than one thing.
Yeah, and I mean, but at the time, everybody talked about that for 2 or 3 days until Keogh's inauguration. Then, it's like everything. Everything, I think, in life now, life moves. I do believe that full of information is such, life moves faster than it does. Check this out. Steve Ellman, a dear buddy from St. Charles County.
Yes.
He brought me this. Check this out. This is a mug from Bill McKenna's retirement party.
Wow.
And it's got the full list of folks that served during that time. I think Peter Kinder's on there. Jerry
gosh.
Howard, talking about a callback to the day.
Oh, heck yeah.
But that's something
John
Steve brought me.
Russell.
Then you'll recognize this. You got to check this out.
And that's the thing, is
I won
it's
this
like,
at the corn growers auction.
oh
Look
my,
at that.
that's,
Kelton, do we need to turn that down so people can see it?
how beautiful
Are
is
we-
that? That's,
It's a little bright.
I got this at
oh,
the...
you can turn it
You
down.
kind of, I think. There we go.
That's cool.
There we are. For TV, for in the bar, we'll just hang that up, let it go bright. But here, I think maybe but I got this at the Corn Growers auction, which was a great time. Sam Graves came in.
Oh,
Like, you won an
cool.
award or give a speech.
Yeah.
I lose track sometimes, but I thought it was cool that Sam came in for that.
Heck
That's
yeah.
that's a neat thing. And whether you're coming from Turkey or from Washington, there's no easy way to get to Jeff City. So
Right.
he had to make a real effort to make that happen. I thought that was cool.
And that's the thing, is about the relationships that you build from being elected.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've got 12 years of being elected with relationships with folks in the building.
Well, let's just walk
But
through
then
it, though.
before that even.
Walk through this, though. You've got, just take the federal delegation. Everybody knows how close you are with Jason Smith.
Yeah.
But Eric Burleson, I believe you two used to sit beside each other
We did.
in the front of the house
We
together,
did.
right?
Yeah.
Then Mark Alford is an
Yeah.
Axiom guy. someone
And
that you know
he
well.
came, and I mean, he has headlined my shrimp boil
Yeah.
for me. I mean,
He's
he's
a great
just
dude. He just
such
gets
a
it.
good guy.
He kind of gets it, right?
He's a good guy.
To come in and never have ran before,
Yeah.
I would have thought, even for a smart person, the uptake is going to be a little slower. Alford got it like that. He just
no.
got it. He sees around corners. Sam Graves, somebody I know you know very well. I have no doubt you know Bob Onder from serving with him.
Yes. Yes.
And I to me, and maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe you're about to tell me I'm wrong. Bob had a way of getting pretty angry throughout the day in the Senate, right? And there was always a little tension sometimes because Bob would get so mad. But when you see him now, do you kind of look back on that as like an old? I've always noticed a lot of that animosity goes away when you're out of the fight.
So it was quite interesting the way that Bob and I have always been, because even in the Senate, because he and I would go head to head.
Yes.
And then we'd go in the back and sit together and laugh about different things.
Well, Bob is that guy that'll be like, "You're a son of a bitch," and then later say, "Hey, son of a bitch, let me go buy you a beer."
I mean, we would totally do that.
Bob
and
does have a switch where he doesn't take it that personally
No,
sometimes.
he doesn't. And so many people
Which is hard
do.
to grasp.
But he and I both are that way. We don't take that personal. And so, like, we've talked on the phone.
I've watched you get fired up a couple times.
Oh, I get. I love a good fight. Like, you know me, I love a good fight. I mean, I'm a country girl from SEMO. I love a good
But
fight.
I bet you when you go out there, he's tickled to see you.
Yeah, no.
When
I
you go to
mean,
Washington, he's thrilled to see you.
he and I have had phone calls since
Yeah.
while he was running for office. And like, we're friends, and then of course.
You have that shared experience, and I cover the
Yeah.
state senate probably closer than anybody else in this state, and it's a great honor to get to sit in the peanut gallery and get some of the access
So
I've been
cool.
able to get from different people. But in reality, having that pen, nobody understands the camaraderie, the conflict, the experiences, the family pressures, the there's no way to understand all the things that go into being a state senator unless you are one. You can be
Right.
as close to it as you can be staff. You can be as close to it as you want to be. There is a part where I don't understand fully what you dealt with, but Doug Beck does.
Right.
But Bob Onder does.
Yeah.
And I would think that camaraderie, it just doesn't change. Wherever you go in life, I mean, unless there's just some reason that you had a personal real throwdown, it feels like to me when I see everybody come back for like the memorial for
Yeah.
the dead centers, it does feel like a lot of those old things go away, and you talk about the shared experience that is such a unique honor in our
I
state.
think it is. It really is. And I mean, and Bob and I are the perfect example.
Yeah.
Because people love to see me and him go at it on the floor because we're both very passionate,
Yeah.
you know, but the fact that we're both very passionate is also one of the things that we can talk to each other about that other people might not get, you know, because we do have that fire about whatever the policies are that we care so much about. But, you know, I talk about our Missouri delegation. You've got Schmidt also
Yes.
that, you know, my son worked for years. I mean,
Mhm.
I love, we have the best delegation, I think, in D.C.
I have, you people know I'm an Eric Schmidt fan. I believe in him personally, and it has been so fun to watch. I always knew he'd be great at it,
Yeah.
and you know, the little bit with McConnell or whatever, but I always really believed, you know, his talents, right? Mike Keogh and Eric Schmidt served together, right? And you could just tell while they were in the room, they were two of the bulls, right? They
Yeah.
were two of the top players in the room. And I think Mike Keogh's skill set probably is very well set to be governor, but I think Eric Schmidt's skill set to be United States Senator, I always thought he'd be tremendous at it.
Oh,
And
he is.
he has taken off, and I think him and Trump are legitimately like friends and
Yeah.
talk, and his colleagues. I mean, Eric's colleagues always liked him in the Senate.
Right. Always.
You know,
Yes. I
maybe
mean,
not
we liked
leadership,
him
but
in
yeah.
the House. I was in
Yes.
the House. We loved him.
And I'm not surprised how well he's doing. And
I'm
and
not
I
either.
I'm
No,
not
he's
saying that to
wonderful.
say I predicted it. I truly thought he'd be this good at this.
Yeah, no, he's exceptional. And then we have Jason Smith, who he will be speaker one of these days. I mean, he will be. Like there is,
I'm thrilled for him. He didn't get it yet.
I think,
I'm not sure.
and I think all of that is because he hasn't wanted it. I mean, he's Ways and Means chair. That's pretty big.
I don't
Big
think it's a very
old
great
deal.
honor right now with
I
3 or
know.
4 seat majority, and you got about half a dozen people who just want to cause you problems. Like, it's so
He's
funny.
in the primo spot now.
I've told
I mean, he's
people.
worked for the right spot.
The Senate's made to break down. The Senate's made to have conflict and fights and break down. It's just the way the rules are set. In the House, if the House breaks down, there's problems because the House is not made to break down. The House is made for the majority to roll the minority, and that's just how it goes. When that breaks down,
It's true.
I don't think people know what to do.
Yes.
I've watched it only once, really since they got the supermajority. But you remember when you were lobbyists, back when they had a very thin majority in the House, you get 6 guys together at
Oh.
dinner, they show back up the next day, and nobody knows what to think. Because it's just supposed to, you put it on the floor, you vote it, it passes, it passes, it passes. When it
Right.
doesn't, I think people are like, nobody knows what to do.
That's right,
It is
yeah.
a different vibe in that Capitol. The Senate you expect. It's the way it goes. It's the process.
Every day is
When
new.
the House breaks down, people are, no one knows quite what to think.
That's
It's a
true.
different world.
That's true.
So getting to lead a firm, like when you were a lobbyist before, you were kind of in-house, right, for the cable folks,
was.
if I recall. Leading a firm, that's kind of a different experience, right? You got multiple issues you have to keep on top of. Who are some of the folks that you're representing now?
So the client list that they have had, we've got Malincrop Pharmaceuticals, which you know, they worked with me a lot on PDMP.
Yep.
So I've worked with them for years. Evergy, you know, Centene. So there are a lot of clients that I've worked with for years in different capacities that it'll be exciting working on this side of it. But one of the things that I'm tasked with is looking for new clients
Sure.
and really adding to our portfolio. So hopefully we'll get some things done over the next few weeks.
Well, you just
to
look
add
at
to
yeah,
that.
you look at your background. You'd be a natural fit for folks in agriculture, obviously telecommunications space. I
Right.
mean, there's a bunch of real natural fits where it's not going to be. You're not going to have to learn new issues.
Right.
They're going to be issues you already have had to deal with backwards and frontwards, which is again, you only can learn in that depth. I think if you are a state senator, even in the House,
Right.
still different. Like, if you get mad in the House, well, okay, you need about 30 friends to be mad, too, before anybody cares.
You do.
But in the Senate, you just have a bad day, you can say, nope, we're not moving forward
You
here.
can derail it
Unanimous
all.
consent does not exist right now. I'm
Yeah.
not happy. I'm not consenting. So
Yes.
that's got to be a cool challenge, though, to lead a firm. And I assume over time, you know you work with everybody in that Axiom space, but my assumption is you add folks as you go along and build the business.
Right.
That's a cool thing. People know you as a lobbyist. They know you as an elected official. But you've been a businesswoman. People in Southeast Missouri know you as a
Yes,
businesswoman.
that's
They
right.
might know you as a
Yeah.
politician now. But I bet you still half of Scott County knows you as a businesswoman before they know you as a politician.
They do. And, 17 years owning a business, and we started it from the ground up. I mean, from an idea that God gave me, knowing the talents that we had, and it's still, I'm no longer owner, but it's still a thriving, wonderful business in telecommunications. And when we saw that things were going towards all the apps and the streaming and that, we started switching our business plan over to doing more construction, because of
What
building
year
fiber out.
did you
And
really decide? I mean, what year did you make the decision? I mean, seeing it coming was one thing. What year did you decide to start making investments and going
more on the
into more?
construction
Yeah.
side, building out. When I started seeing all of the broadband money
Mhm.
that was being talked about in
Yeah.
DC, and it's like, okay, the government is starting to really, really care about broadband in our rural areas. And when you think about it, distance learning, that's been going on for 20 years, but it was never to its capacity. And then you add in healthcare and everything virtual now that
Yeah.
really helps our communities back home. When I started seeing more of that, it's like, okay, we need to have crews that can start building, that can be the one. We don't need to just pitch, hey, we can go in and do your installs, or we can build out a subdivision for you. We need to be the ones that, oh, you're going to invest in broadband in the rural areas. We've got the machines. We've got the people trained. We can get out there and start building that fiber out.
It's
And
such an interesting decision when, like in North Missouri, I mean, if we had a side-by-side, we could just drag a hole behind us and we'd get down 4 inches, right? And where you live, you could bury that stuff. But where I live,
not in, like I started to say, is a rock in Marble Hill.
yeah, there's a part of the boot hill that stops being flat and has wonderful soil
Yeah.
and starts just being a rock farm.
Yeah.
And you got to have something to blast through that rock
You do.
if you're going to bury that. Because, I mean, I think the pole attachment days, I just think those fights are too complicated sometimes and they're prohibitive. But what a great thing that you get to come in on the rural broadband. I think it's fundamentally changing the world.
It is.
Missourians, everything that's happened, every cultural trend, every government policy has driven people from the farm to the city.
Yeah.
But now you can go to Piedmont, you can go to Marquand,
Right.
and you can have rural broadband. You're 2 hours from the airport,
Yeah.
and you can have a good paying job and raise your family where you want to, in a way you want to. You can buy a house 3 times bigger than you can buy it in Sunset Hills, nicer. It is the lifeblood, I think, of rural Missouri, and it's been so great to invest
you
in it.
mentioned airports. Cape Airport flies multiple times to Chicago every day. You can connect anything.
Is that right?
Yes, you can get anywhere from Chicago. So
Yeah.
like it's
Columbia, I think, does Dallas, right?
we are completely set up. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Columbia may do a Dallas and Chicago.
Columbia does Dallas and Chicago.
Kelton is not only does he run an illegal gambling outfit and produce all of our shows, he is a Columbian, and for some reason proud of it. I've never quite understood that.
knows,
But-
okay.
I have a little Columbia pride in me.
Well, I think Trump's put a tariff on you, so So there you are.
Well, we did have a flight to Nashville. Right now it's just Chicago and back. But I think that, Cape, we got the new terminal. I mean, it's growing.
Cape is a place in the state that's actually growing.
It's growing.
Now,
Bluff has been.
As a Poplar Bluff guy, Butler County guy, we don't like Cape Girardeau or the people. We were very thrilled to see you from Scott County be the senator, and I was also personally thrilled to see Jamie Berger be the senator, so Cape doesn't have one again. I get to make fun of my buddy Limbaugh about that frequently. But it's got to be kind of a fun time. It feels like, you tell me, I felt like the state senate you were never able to get beyond the personal animosity that Bill Eigel had for Caleb Rowden. That all stemmed from a leadership race. Gosh, what was that? It was already going on when you got there, right?
It was.
The fight was already, and it was so interesting to me. You're a person that I would have thought they would have had a good relationship with. And somehow they drove you out of that. It feels different now. And
it was with me and
Cindy?
I don't actually. Cindy's the same way. Like, we don't join teams. We do our own thing because we do what's right.
But you're a very conservative legislator.
But completely conservative, super conservative.
Yeah.
And we might agree with you 90% of the time, but if we don't agree with your tactics, we're not going to help you out. Like that, there has to be an order to things. The Senate runs on tradition and order, and that's how you get things accomplished, not just what we saw. And it wasn't just Bill.
Sure.
There was
but your
both
last
sides
year,
of the aisle, all of us.
when Bob was gone, I just felt like, fairly or unfairly, the Bill Caleb thing was hanging over the room at all times, and it manifested itself in 1,000, and Denny too.
I think it did.
It does feel a little different. I've watched Tony Lukemeyer do something that I'm very impressed by. If you're just out and around town, he's having dinner with, he's bringing Jonah Cola and Mike Moon to dinner with Mike Henderson and Curtis Trent and Jamie Berger. Guys that when you served in the Senate, those folks might never have ate if it wasn't just an official caucus thing. They might never have chosen to spend time together. And I think Tony is doing an amazing job. You want to fix the Senate. I don't know that you fix it in the chamber. I'm not sure you fix it in an office. I think maybe you fix it at supper. And I really admire him for the initiative he's taken on that.
He's been doing that for years.
He's been doing that for years. And I was impressed with it when I first got to the Senate. And he took me and some others that you wouldn't have guessed us to pick each other to go to dinner. But Tony's been doing that. And he's very good at that, I agree.
And I think you're going to see dividends being paid. It won't be, they may go to local control today. I doubt they get that done tonight. But I think as you get into April, I think you're going to see some dividends of some of that groundwork he's laid come to fruition.
But you have that coupled with Cindy is a master negotiator.
Yeah.
Cindy
A little bit like Trump, right?
She is.
A little bit.
She is. She brings everybody to the table.
And she'll say a little oddball stuff sometimes.
And I mean,
Could throw you off.
She tells you, and if she doesn't, if she can tell, if you're not giving her your best, if you're not coming to the middle with what your best is, she'll call you out on it. And she'll say, no, I mean, we're not leaving here until we get this figured out. Or she'll say, you know what? The bill's not coming up, or I'm bringing it up next, depending on which side is not being cooperative. But I mean, she gets people to the table, she gets people to cooperate with one another and just talk, because how many things absolutely don't go anywhere because people just won't talk to each other. And she fixes that, because if either you're talking or she's putting you at a table with her and you're talking.
Last thing I want to talk to you about. You were a school choice person when I'm not sure your district was even really there, right?
Right.
If they knew what it was, they didn't like it. That's a
Right.
concept you've believed in a long time. I've come to believe that time has come. That's the one thing about electing Mike Kehoe over maybe some other folks. Kehoe's not going to be on Facebook whining and throwing a fit.
No.
But he's a winner.
He's active.
Mike Kehoe is a winner.
Active. I've had so many of my colleagues already tell me, do you know that the governor has made an appointment with me?
House members, too.
And it's like, House members that have told me that. And it's like...
The governor called their office to make the appointment.
Right, that's right.
They didn't call his office. Yeah.
And it's like, that's who he is. And when it comes to school choice, I'll tell you, and you'll understand this because of Southeast Missouri. 3 kids. I have 3 kids. My oldest one excelled at Sykeston, right? I mean, she could do academics, all the things.
Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, she was red pepper, you know, all the things. My middle son is dyslexic like me. He got lost in those big classrooms. What I would have done to be able to take him to Kelly and allow him to have a 15, 20 person classroom, which is what it was at that time, to have more one-on-one, to have a quieter atmosphere, to be able to learn. My youngest, Christian, is all, you know, he's Mr. Communications.
Yes.
I mean, all the sports, all the, he excelled in Sykeston. But my middle son, who will run my former company someday, he's brilliant. He needed a different type of learning, and I couldn't give that to him.
So remember Brad Pollitt's bill about open enrollment?
Yep.
I personally believe, if you take Butler County, I don't think that you would see people going to Poplar Bluff. They'd be going to Neelyville, Twin Rivers, Elsinore, Puxico. I think in Scott County, I don't think you'd see a mad rush to Sykeston.
You wouldn't.
I think you'd see a rush to Scott County Central
Yeah.
and Cal. I personally think if all you did was that, I've heard people say, well, it's going to destroy the rural schools, the small schools. I actually think folks would drive their kids 10 miles down the road.
I think it helps them.
I don't see it as a boon for the bigger districts. I
No.
see it as now every community and county is different. I'm sure there would be some counties where you'd see some of that, but I think where we live, I think you see a lot more people leave Sykeston.
They
and go
worry
to it.
so much. Sykeston, Jackson, they worry so much. We're going to have people
Jackson, I don't think people are leaving Jackson.
leave. Nobody's leaving Jackson.
The Cape Central people will go to Jackson, maybe.
And they do that now.
Yeah.
But they're like, I mean, they do that now. But it's like they're so worried about their sports programs. And it's like, everyone is not going to flock to Sykeston for the sports program.
No.
A few might, but you're going to have more than that leave Sykeston to go to Benton, to go
I
to
think that's right.
Orion, to go, to get that smaller classroom that just some kids have never had that option. And some of us needed a little bit quiet,
Well, and to me to tie it together, you talked about broadband, and there was a time where the cable TV industry was changing, and time had came for streaming and all the different things you talked about, so you had to change. I think that entrepreneurial spirit does not exist in Missouri public schools to the extent it needs to. Now, I personally think Carla Esslinger walks on water. And whatever she says,
I do love her.
even if I disagree with Carla, I'll just change my mind because she's a lot smarter than me.
She's wonderful.
And she's only been there a few months, and I think it's been some eye-opening things she saw. Not really for the better, most of them. I do think that entrepreneurial spirit you had to say, okay, this is where this is going. We got to plan now to be ready for this to end and this to take off. I personally believe most public schools are buried their head in the sand. And I think the public, and also whether the public is there or not, which I probably think they are after COVID.
I think so.
Mike Kehoe's there. And I kind of feel like that bill y'all passed last year, which Kehoe delivered the last 4 or 5 House members himself. There were some knuckles attached to those buttons from him pushing them on them. My gut tells me he probably knew this was the end of the formula when you did that bill. When you passed that, did you think, okay, this is probably, in the near future, this is what ends the formula?
No, I didn't think this is what ends the formula, but it was like, this will be helpful in ending the formula.
I felt like it was the tipping point.
Yeah.
And also, I think
looking back, it absolutely was.
Right now, you can't afford the piece of legislation was passed is totally unaffordable. It's just not going to ever happen. And I thought Kehoe was smart. If you're going to end the formula, which I think he totally planned to do when that bill passed, right now you're jumping off a cliff from here. If you let it go another year, you're jumping off a cliff from there. Now, the question I'd have for you, I think that the time for school choices came. It's here. It's going to happen. It's like streaming. It's just going to happen.
Right.
You can fight it all you want if you want to, but if you stay in the middle of the road, you're going to run over.
Yep.
I wonder if I wonder if the public schools can have that entrepreneurial flexibility. I don't see it right now.
Some of them are doing it. I had a meeting 2 years ago they had all of the superintendents from many Southeast Missouri, and Kelly's school actually hosted it. And the principal there, we went around the table and told who all the legislators were. We got to school choice, and I said, look, I've always been 100% in favor of school choice, name it. Like, we need options as parents. And the Kelly school principal, superintendent, surprised us all because he said, people around this table really aren't in favor of this. He said, I'm not saying I was in favor of it. He said, but what I am saying is that we know that it's coming, and so we're positioning ourselves to be the best rural school in this area. We're going to be the premium rural school in this area.
That's almost spoken like an entrepreneur, not a superintendent.
Right. And I thought, well, they need to hear you say that because there are some things.
Because it's over. I mean, you've seen it. In my opinion, I haven't always agreed with your take on it, frankly. But whether or not you and I agree, it's raining outside in Jeff City right now. Stick your head out and see. Anybody that sticks their head out and sees, you don't take my word for it. You don't take your word for it. You don't take Kelton's word for it. Fact of the matter is, school choice is coming. That concept is here. Whether you want to call it vouchers, I don't care what buzzword you want to stick on it. You're going to have the ability and it'll be tough. There'll be some tweaks and stuff to go to Kelly if you want to. The question I have, and I've heard you raise this privately. I've heard you raise it on the Senate floor. I've heard you raise this in committee. I do worry though. Kelly, let's be honest. The formula right now is we take St. Louis's money and we fund Kelly and Neelyville and Sykeston and Scott County Central. Is there a way to do school choice where you hold harmless these rural schools? Because right now, what I fear is that they say we're going to cut your funding if you don't raise your levy to $4. I think there's a bill for this. Now, my gut would tell me at first they're going to throw all the money at the schools to get them to go along with the voucher program, right? That's what I would do. I would say, I'm going to shove you with money, and then 3 years out, they'll be like, well, it's unsustainable funding. You have to raise your levies in order to get funding from the state. That's the danger, I think, for a rural school. I think a rural school should embrace school choice and run with it. But I think down the road, if you look at the math, I would be a little worried that on the back end, it's like with this bill, right? You got all this money to go along. Now they're saying, okay, we're not going to do the money part.
So I think if Louisiana can figure it out, we can figure it out. If
How
some
long
of
have they
these
done it in
other
Louisiana?
states, since Katrina.
And did
If
they stick it on the rural folks to raise their levies? And also, look, if I lived in Ladue, I'd be like, what are you telling me? Your levy's $1? Give me a break. Their levy's probably $6, $7 in Ladue. I understand the city people's anger, but I ain't from the city.
I mean, there's so many states that have a lot of rural areas like us that have figured it out.
But Richland, if they did raise their levy, there's not enough wealth there to run that school.
There's not. And so
I
it
don't know
will,
where you'd
there
have to
will
stick that levy to
always
run it,
have
yeah.
to be a balance to be helpful. But look, I mean, we're growing food and clothing the world. So, like, we're doing our part in these rural areas also, you know. So I say there's a trade-off. Yes, there might be more industrial, there might be more taxes coming from these larger areas, but we're providing things as well.
You've been in these rooms where this is discussed. Does somebody make that point and say, hey, I get where you're going, I get there's a price tag, but we're feeding and clothing you.
No, I've not heard. I've not had anyone say that yet. But
Kelton, we need to get our map out of the Republican primary for governor. You know, there was one media market that did not vote for Kehoe. Every single other one did.
really,
Yeah. Guess where that media market was?
where?
St. Louis.
Oh.
I think that's something to remember when having these discussions. I do think that's the fear, though. And I think if I was a rural school, I would embrace school choice because you have no other option, first of all. Number two, I think you're going to overall benefit. Let's be honest. There's probably not going to be a charter school in Donovan.
No, there will not be.
And
That is
probably not in
charter schools-
Sykeston either.
No.
And Cape maybe. But
Charter schools have to make money
a
to
business.
stay open, and so no, they're not going to come and open up in Sykeston.
well, to me, though, at the end of the day, I think you have to, as a rural person, be like, okay, let's make sure that there's protections put in place
right.
to say that why would Jason Bean vote for something that didn't have protections for Bloomfield and Dexter and Puxico and Bernie? How does he get right with that? Because I do think, if I had to guess what they were going to tell Jason Bean is, we're going to give them more money, but for how long would be my question.
And as a parent in the charter school scare, why would I take my kid out of a school that's performing
Yes.
and that they're loving to put him in another? Like, why would you? You wouldn't. And Sykeston, for example, as I said before, Sykeston was great for my oldest and my youngest. There was no chance I would move them out. Sykeston provided a great education for them. And so as long as a school is providing a great education, but unfortunately, we don't have that all across Missouri.
I agree. I look, the city folks' time has come on school choice. I don't think you can honestly look at somebody with the St. Louis Public Schools as the train wreck that it is and say you're doing your part. Those are Missourians too.
Right.
I think, to me, the defining issue of this legislative session is going to be taking over local control of the St. Louis Police Department. And if not school choice this year sets the stage for next year. I know this is Blue Ribbon Commission, but good Lord, how many of those have we seen? They're all bullshit. I think Mike Kehoe knows exactly what he wants this to look like, and this commission will rubber stamp it. And I think the state's very lucky to have Mike Kehoe making those decisions.
Right. Absolutely.
But I think either this year it goes or it doesn't go. But I think the local control thing, but I think the story's going to be, as I know you get to St. Louis all the time. You, as state senator, you just, in the interim, that's where you end up. I went to an education thing where I heard you chairing something at Harris Stowe one day. I think that the Republican Party after this, the story of 2016 or 2026 for the Republican Party, we're going to have to get more positive about St. Louis. If Mike Kehoe's going to go take the police over, right? I think you break it, you bought it, right? If I'm Tashara Jones, I'd almost be like, take this. Good Lord. Just take it off my hands. I'm going to blame you for all the problems now, just like you blame her for all the problems. I do think the Republican Party and us rural folks, if our governor that we elected, because St. Louis did not elect Mike Kehoe, they rejected him. Rural Missouri elected Mike Kehoe. Our part of the state, more than any other, elected Mike Kehoe, rivaling his own his home Senate district. I think we have to change our tune on St. Louis. If he's our guy and he's the leader and we support him, right now you got to dog St. Louis to get this bill passed, right? But after he takes over, I think it's going to be. I think it's like Kansas City. I don't think Kansas City's dangerous. If Casey said, "Hey, I'm going to dinner tonight in Kansas City," I'd be like, "Oh, cool, have a good time."
Right. Yeah.
If she said, "I'm going to Washington Avenue," I'd be like, "Wait a minute, honey, you can't go to Washington Avenue with a group of women. You're going to get shot or mugged." And whether that's real or not, because I know there's stats that show Kansas City's got problems too. In my gut, what's yours? My gut is Kansas City's safe and St. Louis isn't.
No,
and I felt that way my
same.
whole life.
Same.
So I think it's a perception thing, even if you change some of these stats. If I had to guess, if you go in there with new police, a new policing strategy, vigor, instead of kind of supporting the police or not supporting it, I bet there's a lot of crime not being reported right now. So I bet that crime goes up, and then it starts to taper down. I mean, right now, would you even report some of the crime? Because nothing's going to happen. I think it's going to be incumbent on people that have accents like yours and mine to change our tune on St. Louis, because I think it's a perception thing.
But
there's so much to love about St. Louis.
I agree.
And
Usually the Cardinals, not so much right now, but
but I mean, the Fox Theater.
Yes.
You know, my daughter-in-law and several of her friends went this past weekend and had a wonderful time. I mean, there is
let me ask you a question about
so
that.
much opportunity.
If they park in that garage just south of the Fox, and they're going to leave at 11 o'clock at night, do you feel safe leaving the Fox to walk through the alley? I mean, there's a parking garage literally right beside the Fox. I don't always feel safe leaving the Fox at 10 p.m. to go just around the corner. Do you?
Right. Theirs was a day trip.
Yeah.
And I would have been worried if it would have been
I don't
an
feel
evening.
bad in the day, but at night
If it would have been an evening.
Yeah. And that's a sad
But
thing, but I'm just being honest. That's
It is.
how I feel.
It is, but man, St. Louis does have so much to offer. And once the crime thing is under control, and I mean, Keel was signing executive orders the minute he was sworn in. Like, he's focused. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel 100% confident. I mean, no one outworks that man.
No, that's a fact.
I mean,
Good Lord.
Yes. And so, like, I feel 100% confident that he's got it.
I'm not confident anybody could make the perception of St. Louis as safe because I've never seen it in my entire life. I've never thought St.
I
Louis was
think
safe.
it's going to be,
If anybody can, it's him.
I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to turn this thing around.
But I think it's going to take some other folks stopping this entire state's history is everybody against St. Louis. I think it's going to take, I think St. Louis is an asset. Like if you're buying stocks, right? You'd say Kansas City stock is going up right now. You know, Springfield's been going up for a while.
Yeah.
I think St. Louis may have bottomed out, and it may be time to buy. And I think other people might see the same. You know, you're at the trough, and it's time to. But you got to fix the crime. But I think crime to me, as much as it's stats, which I'm not even sure how much I believe, I think it's perception. And I think that perception, Mike Kehoe cannot change that perception alone. It's going to take
No, I mean,
a lot
not
of other
alone.
voices.
But that's
change
the
that.
thing about Mike Kehoe is that their governor, is that he also brings people to the table and gets things done. Like, he reaches out to people.
Yeah.
The work that he did in Southeast Missouri just running for office.
Oh, man.
I mean,
That fundraiser in Dexter, my God.
he knows everybody by their first name. Like,
Get a little help from that Cruz guy, but yeah.
oh my gosh. In Sykeston, I mean, the veteran, like, everybody know, like, he brings his what is that wagon that
Like the Buy Missouri, the
he
Tour Missouri
has
trailer
for,
that makes pancakes?
with the horses? He come down and has been in every Cotton Carnival parade for years now, I feel like.
You know, he's got
He works it.
there's a John Wayne movie when he's in Ireland. That's where he's got the horse and carriage. He's got the carriage that is pulled by horses in his barn in Jerome that came from that movie. That literally was John Wayne rode on this carriage.
Really?
Yeah,
That
pretty
might
cool.
be what he puts in the
Well,
parade.
I have kept you longer than I asked for. I'm very grateful for the time. Axe
it's so
Advocacy,
fun.
part of the
Axe
Axiom
Advocacy.
family.
Super
If you want
excited.
folks that can move the needle, if you want folks that can, I always view Jeff as a bit of a disruptor. Like when he gets into a space, it's going to change. Things are going to be shaken up.
Yeah.
And I think that if there's any company I've ever seen that truly has an entrepreneurial spirit,
Yes.
it is the Axiom. It is Jeff. If you're there, you better be a business person, or you're not gonna stay. You're not gonna stick around. First of all, Axe Advocacy folks can reach out to you. You've got a book business now, but you're looking to grow that, right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I will be excited, and hopefully you'll make a little time when you're in town to come over and visit with us here on TWMP Daily.
I enjoy it. I love it. You have me on whenever you need a
Don't say
extra.
that because we're going to be reaching out. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We will see you Sunday for This Week in Missouri Politics. Senator Brad Hudson is going to be our guest. And a full panel. The most quotable man in the Missouri Republican Party, Jim Murphy, will be there with a group of other folks, hopefully some disruptors. We'll see you Sunday.